As many of you know, a fever started in January. It began at SHOT Show and it spread across the nation, infecting reviewers and YouTubers and shooters, and I'm afraid that we have caught it here at the Social Regressive. There's only one way to deal with 5.7x28mm, and that is to test it to death. The infection has been with us for a while, but not many people caught it for a couple of good reasons. First, the hardware like the FN57 or the PS90, both of those are pretty expensive and weird. And then you have the ammunition, which has been very limited. It was initially designed, the whole cartridge was designed to be kind of a PDW and pistol cartridge that could punch through soft body armor at some of these closer distances. And then when it had to be kind of tamed down for the American market, you ended up with some pretty strange ammo that people weren't really sure, what its terminal effects could be. And, number one, it was kind of scaled back so it wouldn't punch through body armor as well. So it kind of became this weird little nebulous thing. But now that we, number one, have less expensive hardware or more accessible hardware, like we have the Ruger 57 that was announced at SHOT Show, and a bunch of people have had a chance to test that with some mixed results. It seems like it's very accurate overall. People kind of waver on whether the trigger is good or not. But then you have this right back here. CMMG has had their Banshee pistol for a good long while here. I think they released that about a year and a half ago, somewhere in there. And it's a really cool little thing. It's an AR pistol that uses all their tricked out parts and can handle 5.7 and actually fire it very accurately. I got a chance to test it at the IV8888 range day back in 2018. A really cool little thing, just really fun to shoot. But then recently they announced this. This is an upper kit that you can get for your own AR pistol lower. So if you have your AR pistol all tricked out the way that you like it, all you need is this little kit right here. You slap the upper on top, you pop their own special magazine inside there, and you are ready to go. And it has some extra tricks up its sleeve, which we're gonna get into in the next video. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss these videos when they come out, because this is a really cool little thing that we're gonna be testing to the nth degree. We're gonna be doing some accuracy testing. We're gonna do some fun kind of practical testing, just kind of plinking on steel, but we're also going to be testing against ballistics gel, and we're going to be testing with some body armor. So body armor, then ballistics gel, to see how some of this ammunition works. That leads us to the ammunition question. We've had a handful of factory offerings out there, mostly from FN, that can kind of sort of do what it was intended to do. And then we've had the Federal American Eagle, which is just a full metal jacket. And all of these, as other tests have shown, can get through the body armor with kind of interesting results once they get to ballistics gel. But the big one that I really want to test is that Spear Gold Dot offering. A lot of us are thinking in more practical terms with 5.7. We want to be able to see, is this a good carry option? Is this something that we could use for a home defense gun? Is this something that we should use for a truck gun so that we can have the terminal effects that we're after? And I suspect, based on other Spear Gold Dot tests that we've done in the past, that yeah, it's going to be very effective, but we're going to see how it goes. I have the upper kit, I have the ammunition, I have the ballistics gel and body armor ready to go, but I need one last thing, and that is that AR pistol lower set up to my specifications. This is something that I think about before I purchase anything, before I start building anything. I want to know, okay, what's its actual purpose? If this is a range plinker, I'll set it up one way, and this actually would be really fun for that. I do plan to spend a good amount of time at the range just knocking steel around with this. With that light recoil, it's just going to be a whole lot of fun. Some people might want to think of this as a truck gun, so they're going to go as small as possible, maybe with the 5-inch barrel model. This one's the 8-incher. What I'm thinking of with this is a combination mostly of kind of a home defense weapon, something that's going to be very quick to get around corners, very maneuverable, easy to get around. When I tested the Banshee last time, I just love how quick it was bouncing from target to target. Just really, really cool and very accurate within some of the kind of practical distances that you're going to want for 5.7x28. But then I also do want my children to be able to shoot it. So that's going to influence some of the choices that we see here on the bench. Come see what I've picked out here. The centerpiece is a Palmetto State Armory stripped lower. This is one that comes highly recommended from a whole lot of folks, especially Codaboy32. He's done quite a few builds based on a PSA lower, and he just loves them. As for the hardware that attaches to that, sticking with kind of the budget theme, I went for actually the cheapest lower parts kit that you can get out there. This one does not include a trigger because I knew that I was coming back to another trigger here. I've kind of mixed up budget elements. I've put my money into certain parts and I pulled it away from others. But this one does seem to come pretty highly recommended, and I'm going to try it out here on the channel to see how it works. It's just a simple lower parts kit. It comes with an A2 grip, and this grip actually is one of the more interesting parts that I want to swap onto here. I know that I have one back in the in my closet as well, but this is one that tends to be very small and kind of thin, so I think this one may be a good match for my children. As they get older, we can step up a bit to the mag pull. This is one that fills the hand a little bit better for me as an adult, but I think that my kids overall might like this one a little bit better. The pistol brace back here is the CMMG Ripbrace. And previously we took a look at the Ripbrace that was the micro CQB version. This is one that gets a little bit on the longer side. This is their standard. So this one is going to get a little bit closer to a length of pull that's going to work for an adult, but it does also collapse very, very small for children as well. You can see that its overall length right here, this is going to have a pull that's probably, I don't know, less than 10 inches. This is going to be very tiny, and my kids are going to like that quite a bit. And one of the really neat things about the Ripbrace is that it fits really neatly into the shoulder, where some of the others feel a little bit weird. This feels a little bit more like a stock at the back. You guys know that I'm a huge trigger snob, so that's why I went with the Rise Armament LE145. I want a trigger that has a crisp pull. I want very limited over travel. And in this case, I wanted one that had a little bit of a higher pull. The RA140 SST, which is probably the most common Rise Armament trigger, that has a 3.5 pound pull, very crisp, that tiny over travel. This is exactly the same trigger, except that it does take up the pull weight just a little bit. And that is mostly for my kids. I want, when they pull the trigger, for it to be very deliberate. I want them to know that they are pulling the trigger and for it never to be an accidental discharge. So this one I think is going to fit the bill really well. And it's going to work out really well for me too, because this does function a lot like a match trigger. This is built to handle, you know, some of the grit and grime of the great outdoors, but the way that it functions with that tiny over travel and the extremely crisp pull, this is one that's going to make me very happy. As we begin putting it all together, I'll point out some of the tools we're using. This is a DPMS armorer's wrench. We're going to need this for the brace back here. I have a vise block. This is going to help to keep everything very stable as we install some of the parts. Not necessary, but it is a little bit of a help when you're installing some of the pins. Allen keys, ratcheting screwdriver. I don't think we'll actually need this for anything, but it's handy to have around. A whole bunch of pin punches. Pliers might come in handy. Oil. This is that Spartan Accuracy oil that I've been using everywhere. It goes great on pancakes. Love this stuff. A well-loved hammer. Now let's take a look at the lower parts kit. There are different trims that you can get through Tom's Tactical. The two that I was looking at the most were the Anderson and the Tom's Tactical. Both of them are very affordable, and they all seem to have very similar parts. I went with this one largely because it included some of the things, some of the stranger things that I needed, and excluded some of the others. So this one did include that A2 grip, which I was very interested in. I wanted to be able to get that slim grip for the kiddos. And then in here, this has everything that I need to assemble the AR lower, except that it does not include a trigger. So a lot of these will include a basic kind of mil-spec trigger. This one did not, since I knew that I was coming in with an aftermarket trigger, so I didn't have to waste money on a trigger I wasn't going to use anyway. But this should have absolutely everything else, especially this kind of lower trigger guard piece with its roll pin. A lot of the time you're going to find these kits don't include this and you have to buy it on the side. So everything came in this one, and I think it came out to be about 35 bucks before shipping. Not too bad. I have the vise block in place, but we're going to skip it for this first step. I need a little bit of, just a little extra something to take up some of the slack here as I install this roll pin. This pin is going to hold the slide stop in place. And I just want to get this started. I don't want to drive it all the way through because we need to install some hardware in here, then finish the job. While I have these springs out, it's a good idea to lube them up a little bit. There we go. This is one of the shorter, fatter springs in the kit. This is going to go back inside here. And we have a little steel detent that sits here at the top and pushes against the slide stop. So that fits right in that little hole right there. The slide stop fits right there. And now we just need to drive the pin all the way through to hold it all in place. There it is, nice and flush. The mag catch has 3 pieces. Push the bar through on the left side. And then you have a spring that fits around the screw on this side. And then you have the aluminum button right here. So I can begin screwing it in on this side. There we go. And it's only going to go so far before it stops. Now what I need to do is take a pin punch. You can use a drill bit, you can use a pen, anything that can push this all the way through. And then we can start screwing it into place from this side. And we want to get this just to the point where the screw that's sticking through on this side is flush with the button. Yeah, that feels nice. And there's my mag catch. I can actually test it right now. Okay. The trigger guard is going to be a little bit easier off the vise. One side has a spring-loaded detent already installed. So I'm just going to push that down on this side. Slide it into place. Okay, so there is the initial hinge. And then to install the pin on the back side, I'm going to take up a little bit of slack with a piece of wood right here. Once it's partly installed, I can get the trigger guard just in the right spot and continue driving it in. This pin is slightly shorter than the distance it needs to travel, so I'm going to get this just slightly below the surface. As we install the Rise Armament trigger, there is one piece of equipment I did not mention, and that is the anti-walk pins. These are like the KNS, not exactly. These are ones that aren't connected to each other. They're very simple. But make sure you get some anti-walk pins if you're going to use an aftermarket trigger that comes all in one piece like this one. The trigger drops in, and then you can push the 2 pins in from either side. The tiny little screws that install on either side of these 2 pins has a very small head there, and it does come with these tiny little wrenches. Normally, I would be using a torque wrench to get the exact 8 pound-inches torque specification that these guys recommend, but I don't have a bit small enough, so I'm just going to have to do this by hand. This kit actually came with 2 wrenches. And that way I can do this, tighten them against each other. And I'm guessing that if I apply kind of maximum torque along the small end this way, that should be just about right, and that will hold it in place. At this point you should have 4 springs left. We're going for this one that's a little bit on the thicker side and a little bit shorter. And this is going to pop right here into the grip. This is going to be what holds the safety in place. The safety gets pushed in from, I'm going to put it in the fire position. I'm going to put it in from the rifle's left side. And it'll just kind of hang out right there. So I've got fire pointing straight down. And then I have this little detent right here. This is going to hold the safety in place. And now the grip screw and lock washer will hold it all in place. Function test. Okay, feels good. The CMMG Ripbrace has got to be the coolest all-in-one on the market. It's lightweight, includes everything you need, including the buffer and spring. And it has the castle nut and that kind of retention tab there at the back. I should point out a couple of things on here. First, you do get some of those QD sockets right back here for a sling. So if you want to run single point or if you want to run 2 point, you can definitely pop that on there. And before we install this, I do need to point out one thing. Hidden here on the spring, on this end of it, is our wrench and screw for installing our kind of position brake here on the buffer tube. This allows you, okay, the ripstock and the Ripbrace both have this feature where you don't have to press any buttons in order to get this into fighting position. You just pull, and then it'll snap across these little spots back here and hit the exact spot that you're after. Now, if you do have an optimal spot on both the Ripbrace and the ripstock, you want to be able to hit a certain length of pull, you can actually, here, I'll take this down real quick. So you just pull on the lever right here, and that'll just slide it out of the buffer tube. I can install this screw into any of these positions to get the exact length of pull that I want. So if I'm a little bit on the shorter side, I can take this up a little bit. I'm a tall dude, so I'm not going to install this at all. I'm just gonna hit the back end of this every time I pull it out. And this one is a little bit longer than the Micro CQB that we tested before. This one's gonna get me a little bit better length of pull. This is a pistol brace, not a stock, but if you're looking for one that you can shoulder very well and it's much more comfortable than a lot of the competition, definitely look at the Ripbrace. We have very few parts left. Mostly we have the 2 takedown pins right here. This one that has the flattened section and is longer, that's gonna be the front one. That's the ugly one. I'm gonna put that off to the side. For now, we're going to install the rear pin. And this, as you can see, has a track that runs through it. This is where the detent is going to sit. And this one is actually relatively easy to install. Just make sure that you have that track pointing directly backward. So we're gonna install it from the right side. The detent slides into this hole at the very back. And then one of those long, thin springs goes on top of that. Now we take the buffer tube, install the castle nut as far backward as we can get it. And then we're gonna take this, this retention piece right here, this usual little sling loop right here. We're gonna put it on top of that. And then all of this is going to sandwich and press that spring into place. So I'm just gonna start screwing this into place, watching to make sure that I don't hit that spring yet. At the same time, keep an eye on this right here, this hole. This socket is where the buffer retention pin and spring are gonna go, and we don't want to get in the way of that yet. We're getting to the point where the buffer tube is about to overlap that spot, so I'm going to drop in the spring, put the detent over it, and what I'm going to do is hold this down as I screw in the buffer tube. And at some point, it's going to overlap it right there. So now what I can do, the buffer tube is now in pretty much the exact position that it needs to be. Making sure that I'm keeping an eye on this spring back here, I'm going to push everything forward, thread on the castle nut, and then I can use the armorer's wrench to tighten that nut down. I can reinstall the brace by pulling down on the lever. Now for the buffer spring and buffer. And finally, the worst part of all, the front takedown pin. I don't know if I'm going to show how I do this. There are special tools just for this job, but here's the theory of what we're about to do. The spring and detent, okay, so the spring is going to go in first, detent, and then the takedown pin goes over the top of that. Sounds easy. It is not. This little detent wants to launch itself across my garage. I'm not even going to do this job in here. I'm going to go take it back in the house and do it someplace where I know I can find the detent afterward. So what we're going to do here, if you have some kind of steel rod dowel, I'm actually using a drill bit. I'm going to push this through from the opposite side. And this is going to be my little retainer. So I'm going to just barely hold this out of the way, get the spring and detent pushed in place, and I'm going to use this to hold it over that spot. Then I'm going to take my pin and push it across. So I'm going to swap places with it. And if all goes well, that's going to snap into place. And once I have it on one side, that's it. That's all I need. But this is the worst part of an AR right here. This is the most annoying part. I don't want to have to spend 10 bucks to go just get one tiny little piece of metal. I'm going to go do this someplace safe. A lot of people say do this in a tent. That's really smart. Ha! I did it in one shot. I didn't have to drag my house with a roofer's magnet. Yep, everything came together well, and no, I'm not going to take it apart so you can see it again. But there it is. Pops out neatly. And let's do a little function check here to make sure that everything is functioning the way that it should be. Mag catch. Seems to be functioning just right. It's not going to go too far. Not when I press with my finger anyway. Bolt catch seems to look and feel just the way that it should. Safety. And let's try the 2 pins. Okay. Overall, I would say that Tom's Tactical kit, so there's their card. You can go check out their website. I think it's just tomstactical.com. But the kit that they put together was inexpensive and seems to have all the right parts in all the right places. Tolerances feel good. If there's anything that I'll say negative so far, it's that the detents seem to be just a little bit on the sharp side. So they're a little bit, well, they're breaking in just a little bit. I think over time they'll wear in. But at first, closing this takedown pin was a little bit tricky. And it seems to just be breaking in just fine. So actually, I don't have any complaints. Yeah, the Tom's Tactical seems to be a good way to go. And of course, this trigger, the LE145, oh my gosh. Yeah, once we get the upper installed on there, we'll be able to really talk about the trigger pull, and I'll be able to show you what it looks like. Rise Armaments makes my favorite AR triggers. The RA535 is insane, and everything that descends from there down to these, they've taken a lot of that technology and made it much more accessible, both price-wise, well, especially price-wise for the rest of us. Just great, great triggers. And just like that, we have the perfect pistol lower. That's one of the wonderful things about the AR platform. Once you get everything all tricked out the way that you like it, if you want to swap calibers, if you want to get into different barrel lengths, get into different kinds of shooting, you just swap the upper, swap the mags. It's easy to do, and it's a whole lot of fun. So yeah, this is going to be a perfect platform for the CMMG upper, and we're going to get into that in the next video. So make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and especially hit that notification bell so you can see when new videos come out. You're not going to want to miss a thing. I'm really curious to see how this is going to shoot at practical distances and some impractical distances, and the hand loading is going to be a whole lot of fun. And I'm really curious to see how the different ammunition functions. So yeah, just make sure you don't miss a thing. And in that next video, we're not only going to take a look at the upper itself, take a look at its parts, its peculiarities, and some of the really cool things about its magazines, but we're also going to talk about how to kind of trick out the upper so that we actually can get on target with it. We're going to be showing some really cool sights back here. Thank you for watching, and thank you to everybody that has made projects like this possible. Thanks to CMMG for sending the upper for us to play with. And thank you to Blackhawk for sending these sites that we're going to check out. Also, big thanks to patrons of the Destructive Arts. They're the ones that keep the lights on and keep the cameras rolling. And if anybody else wants to chip in $1 or $2 a month, I'll put a link to Patreon. Thank you to everybody out there. We have Sportsman's Guide and Stan and Mary at the 338 Lapua Magnum level. And we have Joseph Davis, we have Peter and Mr. No Name at the 300 Win Mag level. And then we have a bunch of other folks that are just chipping in that $1 or $2 a month to help keep these going. It all adds up, and it makes it so I can get better sound, better images, and better equipment here on the bench. I'll see you guys around. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These two videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, the Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.